War and Society, World War II, and also Grand Strategy and the Foundations of Anglo-American Statecraft. It's a bit of a mouthful, it is a good module. This year I do War on Terror, Gender and Global Politics, which is slightly more IR focused, and also Conflict, Slavery and Human Trafficking. And then my dissertation topic is on female agents in the Special Operations Executive in World War II. Bit niche, but very interesting. So as you can tell, probably leaning towards World War II specialisms. If anyone has any questions on that, and also the World War II module, very happy to help on that. Do you want to choose the modules?
Yeah, I think we'll continue down just because we're a big panel, so let's keep the questions shorter, and then we have more time to kind of like go through everything. Yeah, so just if you go on.
So hi everyone, my name is Joseph. I'm a third year War Studies, straight War Studies, just like Lauren as well, the best, as she said. So my second year modules were Intelligence War Studies in the Financial Order, and then World War II, so also same interests. My third year modules are Russia in the 21st century, War on Terror, and Coin. So if you guys have questions about that, I'd be happy to answer you. And my dissertation topic is core cohesion in the French Foreign Legion. So yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Casper. I'm straight international relations. And my second year modules were statecraft and diplomacy, intelligence and war studies, and international law, humanitarian rights, and human intervention. And then this year, my regional specialization is MENA. So the module is called Conflict and Security for Middle East and North Africa. Then I'm taking a curricula. I took in the first semester a curriculum innovation module, which was called Negotiating Complexity. It's very legal. It's about resolving complex interstate disputes outside of the courtroom. And then this semester, I'm taking a module called The Clandestine Side of Globalization, and that's about terrorism, transnational crime, and corruption. And then I'm also taking a module on foreign policy crisis and diplomacy. And my dissertation is about intelligence in Interpol.
Hi everyone, I'm Noah. I'm a third year straight IR student, and I'm here to talk about the Africa specialism module today. Last year I did a year abroad, so if you guys have any questions about that, I'm glad to answer those. But I won't be able to talk about any second year modules, unfortunately. So this year I've taken the Africa specialism module, but also the authoritarianism module and diplomacy and foreign policy crises. And my dissertation question keeps on changing. Generally, it's regarding Chinese security contractors in Africa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Colin, and I'm a third-year international relations student. My regional specialization is East Asia. I usually focus a lot on the Korea, but I also touch upon other East Asian countries like China, Japan, North Korea, and how all the relations go through together. My second-year modules were diverse in some sense because I took the international political economy, international law, humanitarian practices, and then statecraft and diplomacy, touching upon different areas altogether. The third year module is more focused. So my regional specialization module is contemporary strategy in East Asia. And then I take authoritarianism and international politics is another module, and I take 2 semester modules. The first semester was the comparative capitalism, which talks about different models of capitalism, very economic focused. And second semester, I'm taking the Korean development and East Asian development, which is also focused on economics, but on the perspective of East Asia. My dissertation topic is about the strategic hedging and what the Korea can make choice between China and the US. So I look at how the Korea can balance out and calculate the cost of the military and the economic benefits they get by engaging with China and the US, and how Korea can make the best choice out of it. So yeah, I'm also happy to share any insights on the East Asia region in general and any topics related to it.
My name is Camila. I also do straight IR. In second year, I did War in the 20th Century, War in Society, and Diplomacy and Statecraft. And this year, I'm doing Gender and Global Politics, International Relations in South Asia, Public International Law, and my dissertation is on transitional justice and truth commissions. So I'm looking at Sierra Leone specifically. I've heard so much about Colin's dissertation, I still don't understand what's going on. So if anyone else is confused, don't worry.
Right, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Matti. I'm here to talk about the EU in the international system module, but in my second year I also took foreign policy analysis, grand strategy, contemporary IR theory, but I'm not sure if it's running anymore. And then global politics, of course, was the core module. And this year, besides the EU in the international system module, I'm doing critical security studies and history of nations, nationalism, and theories of the state. Can they hear me?
Yes, they can see Thomas as well.
All right, right. And for my dissertation, I'm doing sort of history of international thought, history of IR theory within the English school paradigm. Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Thomas. I'm a third year history and IR student. In second year, I took statecraft and arts diplomacy, the long view module, which is the history and IR module, Northern Ireland troubles, and the history of political thought from 1700 onwards. This year I'm doing authoritarianism, post-conflict peacekeeping, the global Cold War module for history, and my dissertation is about the evolution of UN peacekeeping principles during the Congo crisis. So while I can talk about the modules I took, if you have any questions about the history side of it, especially with dissertation, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, guys. Actually, how many of you are first years? Okay, and the rest of you are then second years, I assume. Okay, amazing. Maybe actually, if online, every first year, can you raise your hands? If it works. Okay. Okay, it's around 13 people. Okay, thank you so much. You can take it down again. Okay, so basically, as you can maybe hear, specifically for international relations, you are asked to do like a regional specialism. You might notice that we miss, or I don't know if you know, we miss two regions, at least for our year. We miss Russia, and we are missing Latin America. Basically, we've had two cancellations today due to personal reasons. We can talk a bit about what the different modules, like what they're about, how they're structured, because again, Latin America compared to Russia, for example, already there you're a bit like, that's a bit of difference, a lot of countries to cover in contrast to like one country, which is super relevant, unfortunately, right now. So do ask away if you're interested in hearing about that, and then we can maybe help each other. Yeah, I think all my modules are mentioned one way or another through all of you, so I'll just leave it to the panelists. Good, so if we can do another round then, and tell us a bit about how you went about choosing your modules. Is it exam-based? Was it essay-based? Is it because you're specifically interested in a topic that you kind of knew from the beginning about the workload? Is it because you've been recommended it? And if you could try to include both second year and third year as much kind of like as you can. Lauren, you can go again.
Perfect. So for me, I hate exams. Like, I'll be straight about it. Uni exams, we're fortunate to not have to have done any, but they were still like, for us, there was a possibility of doing them, obviously this year, 24-hour ones. So for me, a lot of it was based on whether they were essay or exam based. I've only done 2 exams. I will be doing 2 exams in my whole 3 years here, so it's quite easy. A lot of the time I go obviously based off essays, but looking further, if you enjoy book reviews, policy briefs, that type of thing, there are modules that will cater towards that. I personally don't like book reviews because you have to read some very long books. So that for me factored into it. Most of my modules have been 2 essays, 3,000 words. I know first year's usually around 2,000 words, so it's a bit of a step up. In my third year now, I have a 4,000 word module. Camilla has the same in gender and global politics, and that's around the same time as my dissertation, so it's not too complicated about that. But yeah, so I think for me, with an interest in World War II, in my second year, that was the first on my list. When you come to pick them, if there's one you're really interested in, put it first, because chances are you will get it. And that's what I did for World War II. And also, I think it's good to look at the lecturer or the professor who's running the module. A lot of the professors who run the modules are like global specialists. So my dissertation supervisor, I requested him because he taught me in the World War II module. So yeah, I think looking at the type of assessment is probably one of the biggest points when choosing a module.
Thank you.
I definitely, so this is my idealism going back up. I definitely choose interest over exams, actually. I'd say you definitely need to choose your modules by interest, what you like first. Because first of all, that's what you're going to perform better in, realistically, because you're interested in it. And second of all, you're going to need to study this for an entire year. So you might well study something that interests you rather than something that's going to be a drag and oh my gosh, I need to study this at 3 a.m. Oh man, I have to do like, I don't know, finance again. But then I'd also find a balance between that and job applicability. So if you want to become like a, I don't know, cyber engineer or working cyber, for example, you might as well take the cyber module because that's what's going to apply most to your job. Obviously find a balance. And sometimes it happens that you don't have the module choice that you want. You're going to need to plan, plan Bs and what if I don't get this module, stuff like that. That's not to say that exams don't come into account in your choice. I mean, for example, if you have a big workload during the year, like you have your entire module, all of your modules are essay-based or all your modules are exam-based, that's not going to be very convenient. So I definitely keep that in account too. At the end of the day, it's all about, basically for me, if I have to put one parameter in evidence, I'd say it's about finding a balance between what you like and between the convenience of it.
Yeah, I would definitely second that, although I also don't like exams. Still my interest trumps that. And I agree with you. I think it's really important that you're studying something that you actually genuinely enjoy and that matches your interest. And it also matches why you came to study war studies or international relations. For me, that's very much been getting an understanding in international law, in diplomacy and in security related issues. So those are sort of the three guiding themes that I've been exploring throughout my education here. So that's sort of been the guiding themes in choosing my modules. Then on top of that, I don't intend to do a PhD after this, or I don't intend to go into academia. So that resulted in me in choosing choosing less theoretical modules and choosing more hands-on modules. So I really like modules where the assessments include simulations or where they include policy briefs. So I do look at the assessments in the sense that, do I get a sort of professional skills out of these assessments? And then on top of that, I would choose modules that have directly transferable skills in a professional role, be it diplomatic skills or, for example, through intelligence in war studies, there was intelligence analysis skills that we were able to gain from that. And I find that really important because once I go into job hunting, that will allow me to make the case that the modules that I chose are actually I gain skills that are directly transferable to a job. So those are the guiding principles for me.
If I were to add to Joseph's equation, I'd say that the number of readings is something that was very important to me because I hate doing the readings because I tend to do lots of extracurriculars. That's why I tell the teachers. But I'd also I don't have much to add other than I chose two of my modules based on the dissertation. I knew that I wanted to write something about Sino-African relations, but I could only choose one geographic specialism. So I was hesitating between East Asia and Africa. So what I ended up doing is choosing the Africa specialism module and the authoritarianism module, because the authoritarianism module I do with Colin allows you to focus on one state throughout your two essays. So you kind of become a country expert. So that allowed me to have the China side of things and the Africa side of things. So just keep those things into account. Your dissertation, and if you're missing out on something in one module, it can be, you could find a way to balance it out with another module.
Well, I think I'll sound very, very, very realistic in a sense. I calculate a lot when I'm planning the modules and choosing the modules in the second and third year. And I always had a theme for each year on how I choose a module. The second year, it was more focused on getting the different tools that I can use in the study and also the academia. That's why I tried to ensure I have a taste and learn different aspects of international relations. That's why I chose one from law, one from diplomacy focus, and one from economics, because those are the three areas that are mainly interconnected to each other. And they are the central, I think, to the international relations per se. So that's why I wanted to ensure I have all the skills before I go to third year. And the third year, I followed one of the advice that I also got in one of the, I think it was the same panel event in my second year. And one of the advice that the person gave in the lecture, well, in the panel event, was saying that you need to ensure you also try to bring different modules together to the dissertation, so that the modules that we take can be super helpful and interconnected with the dissertation. Because the thing is, in the third year, you will probably have to do a lot of other stuff as well. Like we need to apply for the job applications, internship application, graduate scheme, PhD, master's degree, whatever they be. So that's why you can't like dedicate a lot of time to the dissertation as much as you want. But if you have the modules that are connected to your dissertation, you technically do some kind of readings that are related to your dissertation as well. So in that sense, you can accumulate the knowledge that you can definitely use and transfer back to the dissertation, which reduces the burden that you feel. So that's why when you see all my modules are related to East Asia, somehow authoritarian module, I do North Korea, so it's always including Korea. In the East Asia module, East Asia, the Korean development module, also Korea. So you can see all of them actually come together into my dissertation so that I can like discuss about how the military political relationship in East Asia works out, but also at the same time, economic side of it works out because they both come into my dissertation. So that's why I think one of the key things for the second year is choosing the modules that can actually also support the dissertation and have connections with it. So you can also do the work and study more efficiently, not just putting too much work on yourself while you also want to do so many different things as a study student.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what has been said already, which is basically choose something that's useful for your dissertation, so at least one of your modules plays into it, whether or not that's your regional specialism. Doesn't have to be. Mine does not. I'm doing South Asia, I'm focusing on Sierra Leone. That does not really go together. But my gender module works for it. My law module works for it. Choose something you can use even if it's not your regional specialization. I think that's sort of a key thing. I would also say, yes, choose from your interest, but try to balance the workloads a little bit. If you can look at one of your modules that you think is really interesting, but you can see that the work is going to be a lot, like, for example, public international law, which is a lot of reading. I'm not going to lie to you. Choose something else that's interesting, but maybe a bit less heavy in the work you have to do on a week-to-week basis. So I chose doing gender and global politics because the readings are a bit less intense. The material is something I'm a bit more familiar with already, so it's not as work-intensive every single week. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, definitely.
Right. I agree with everything that has been said. One thing that impacted my decision to pick, especially the critical security studies module and the history of international system module, which are fairly theoretical and you read full books per week. But the good thing about those modules is that in the assessment, you get to pick your own, you get to decide your own question, you get to pick your own mini research project that you can pursue. And that's what I like about those modules a lot. So you can explore whatever you want to do, as long as it's loosely related to the content in terms of the theories that you go through or the topics somehow. So that's something also to bear in mind, whether you have sort of autonomy to choose your own questions, do whatever you want in terms of the essays. And they're long essays. In the third year modules, they're 4,000 word ones. And you do a mini proposal, you pitch it to the module convener, and then they sort of supervise you a bit on what to focus on, and give you some more tips. And that's a great way of learning new things.
Yeah, I'd say interest was my main factor in choosing. Why did I just looked at all the modules, opened all of them on like tabs, read the intro. If I didn't like it, closed. If I liked it, read like just the module outline, try and rank it. It's obviously a bit hard, but it's a rough look at the professors as well. I had Dr. Chris Parks in first year. I really enjoyed having passed them, so I took him on in second year. Really enjoyed that one, so I passed one in third year. Another my dissertation supervisor, and I took statecraft largely because of Dr. Ladwig, even though he's, I don't know if this is just me, but I thought he was quite a tough grader, so take that into mind as well. And then also you can look at their like profiles on King's pages. You see what the professor's interest is as well, and they'll kind of steer into that direction. Yeah, the dissertation thing I agree with. It definitely helps. I do my dissertation on peacekeeping principles and a class on post-conflict peacekeeping influences that a lot. But I'd say definitely just do interests. The workload, I heard the law ones are a bit dense, but it will probably largely be the same. And I mean, you're here for a reason, so don't be discouraged by doing a bit more work if it's something you're really interested in. On the history side of things, I'd say try to avoid the history IR module, like the IR modules that are more historical. Like I think the Africa in the 20th century or War in Africa in the 20th century, something like that, is kind of more episodic where it follows different wars. In that sense, I didn't want to do those because then it would be more of a history module, which I was already taking different modules of. So that's why I prefer more theoretical or more practical ones. And for the history ones, I'd say don't be afraid to go into niche topics. I did Northern Ireland Troubles. It's quite a niche topic, but in the end, it's not, you don't remember like the dates and stuff. For me, at least, what I've liked from studying history at King's, it's like how I think about history. That's the main thing that's changed for me. So don't be afraid of that, and yeah, that's all the best for that.
Cool, yeah.
Just add something. Thomas is absolutely right in pointing out the details of the module as in the teacher. For instance, one other chance that you have is that you have the module outlines most of the time in advance before you need to choose. I'd also really look at the topics that are discussed week by week, because that really you can see whether the module itself interests you. You can see sometimes the title of the module, that looks pretty interesting, and even from the teacher, he covers this or this subject, he's a specialist in this or this subject. That can be pretty interesting. But we also have the chance to see what we're studying every single week, and if that doesn't appeal to you, then you can really know. Sometimes you need to make choices between, I don't know, your third or fourth choice of module, and it can be really, really precious to see, okay, this is exactly, concretely what I'm studying. Just keep in mind.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I think we're going to do another round where I ask a question for everyone to answer. So if you have any questions, just so we maybe can answer some of your specific concerns about specific modules. If it's more about, I'm super interested in feminist theory, do you have any recommendations for modules, something like that? Yeah, so do think it can also be about workload, professors, though it is recorded, guys, so, and we still need our last grading, so be aware, we're also here afterwards.
Yeah.
No, but we love the department, and we do love the department.
You don't have to show anything.
Yeah, so if you have any questions in mind, let us know afterwards, also online. Noah, I think I'm going to start with you just to spice things up. So basically, I would like to hear about your favorite modules. So 1 or 2 favorite modules, what have they been like? What has made them different to any other? Has it been topic, the lecturer, something that surprised you, something like that? Sorry, I hope it's not.
Sure, no, that's fine. I'll try and remain as neutral as I can in front of the camera. I'd say that my favorite one is the authoritarianism in international politics module, because the lecturer is amazing and the format is so good. Unlike all the other modules, well, that I know of, that have 1-hour lectures and then 1-hour seminars, it's like a big 2-hour seminar, but it's not, it's always very engaging. It's pretty much, oh yeah, and Thomas does authoritarianism too, I forgot, sorry. But my bad. He switches between lecture sections and brainstorming sections and subgroups, and sections where we can engage with him, we can give our feedback on our conversations with the subgroup to the rest of the class. So it's super engaging. You have quite a large group of students in the room, so you'll have 20 to 25 people or so. So it's not like some seminar groups that are smaller, and so therefore sometimes it can get a bit dry, especially as the year goes on. In authoritarianism, you'll always have people that are going to be speaking up and giving really relevant examples. And also outside of the whole format side of things, it's a really thematically interesting topic, because we always talk about democratization, but not so much about autocratization. And then I'd say my second favorite is the Africa specialism module. The lecturers, I guess it's mostly down to the lecturer. He's really cool, Dr. Mitten, super open to discussion. His experience his experiences from interviewing and doing research in Sierra Leone are, he just brings amazing insights to the classes. And he's a really nice guy and very approachable if you want any recommendations, or if you want, I have him as my dissertation supervisor, and he's been really great on that too. However, one warning I have regarding the Africa module is that the first term is very Cold War, it's very much post-colonial history centric, so which is something you need if you want to study and understand African conflicts today, but that may be something that if you don't dig deep enough in the module outlines, you may miss, which is why I go back to Joseph's point earlier on. It's super important that you look through exactly what each week is about. Finally, the foreign diplomacy and foreign policy crises module, which is a good module because you have two policy briefs, which is quite interesting. But I must admit that I didn't dig deep enough, and it's very much Cold War centric. So that's something that I found a bit. So, but yeah.
So those are all third-year modules, just so you're aware.
Oh yeah,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, but yeah.
If you have any questions about year abroads, you come to me afterwards.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. So yeah, you're also able to ask Noah about that. Colin?
Well, I think to ensure I have good relations with all the professors, I'll change it as most impactful modules to me. That has most impact on me. Favor is a little bit scary term, so I'll put impact. I think the first one definitely has been the statecraft and diplomacy. I can't emphasize enough how much the module has impacted all my studies as someone who studies IR and research in IR. The name of the professor, Dr. Ladwick, scared me a lot when I'm choosing the module as a first-year student, but I think the second year, when I was taking the module, I learned that each of the topics that we go through in the statecraft diplomacy module actually can be applied in any modules that I take in the third years, because it seems like it is going through the key topics of the IR that is related to like diplomacy, the symbolic diplomacy, nuclear weapon, all the key things that you will study as an IR student. So I think it serves as a great foundational module that actually can guide you as a researcher for even just writing the essays or any topics in the few years. And I still go back to my statecraft readings with notes so that I can like get some of the key things I can bring back to the third year modules, because it is very like Dr. Ladwick emphasized a lot of the concept as well. So that's why I think that allows you to study the key concept that you'll need to know in the third year and continuously in your study. Another thing I liked about the module was definitely that, although it's controversial, that the questions are quite broad. Where Dr. Ladwick makes the questions, essay questions, it is difficult in a sense to tackle it, because when you see the large questions like my first term question was, do sanctions work? I was like, okay, like, yeah, no, like, it seemed like a broad question, but I think what I learned from that experience was more or less how I can narrow down that large topic into my specialized area. So that's why throughout taking the statecraft module, through engaging with Anna, Dr. Anna Plunkett was a really nice person as well, I learned a lot about how I can like make those large concepts and ideas into smaller topics that I can specialize on and write the essay based on that, which is a key skill that we tend to use a lot in the third year because we specialize in different areas. Our dissertation also tackle big topic, but in the end, we try to answer small, shorter sub-questions. So I think altogether, it brings all the key skills, key concepts that you need. That's why statecraft diplomacy is the most impactful module. I think the second one, quite difficult to choose, but I'll choose the third year module, the East Asia, because East Asia module, of course, I'm not satisfied in Korea. My really strong passion is not covered very well. But in many cases, I can definitely see that class itself is designed for us to have a better understanding of the key actors and key issues in the area. It is different from the second year module. I didn't take the second year East Asia module because we focus more on the history side of it. It is taught by the same professor in the third year, but the second East Asia module talks more about the war strategy and history of East Asian warfare or any kind of engagement diplomacy back then. But I studied in East Asia before, so I jumped to third year module, which is talking more of the contemporary strategy. It covers not just the warfare itself, but also covers other diplomatic issues, economic issues like Belt and Road Initiative by China. So that's why it is quite a broad module that you can play along with. And for the first term, we just had a freedom to choose whatever topic we want to write for our essay, you are free to do so, as long as it is related to East Asia. I think that's why it brings different students together. I focused mine on China's BRI. I know my friend who focused on Sino-Indian relationship. So that's why there are a lot of freedom inside the module. The second term, we are currently working on a group project, which is a little bit stressful in a sense, but we are getting there. But also like the second term, you have more like a freedom because they give you the choice on what kind of topic you can work on for your policy brief. In the second term, we are working on producing a report that we can give to one of the international actors on how we can solve the issues in the East Asia. Our group talks about what the UK can do to solve the denuclearization side of North Korea. So we are making a policy suggestions, explore the history of it, which actually allows you to go through in depth more about the specific topics as well. The policy brief, Dr. Levering emphasized a lot as well, that the policy brief skills that you learn from the module is also applicable in the jobs that are related in the international relations field a lot, because you get to write the policy brief a lot in different jobs that you'll find in IL field. So that's why in that sense, it also prepares you for the future career if you're interested in that side. So in that way, I think the East Asia module also provides great insight to it, allows me to explore the interest, if you are interested in East Asia as a region, but also like have a lot of freedom for you to make your module by yourself. So that's why I think those two modules are the most impactful ones for me.
I'm going to talk about a second year module and a third year module as well. It's not necessarily my favorite second year module, but because my favorite was global politics, I'll talk about what I found the second best because we have to do global politics and no one else can choose it, so it's fine. War and Society is a really, really interesting module. It focuses a lot in the first term on the relationship between the military and civil society, and the second term goes more into discussing ethics, topics like humanitarian intervention, R2P, but still focuses on reintegration of soldiers, veterans, veteran care. It's a broad module that focuses on ethics related to warfare, and it's really, really interesting. The readings are fine. The rule basically is do some, but don't do all of it, and you can choose what you do based on what you find interesting every week, which is lovely. Have some really interesting discussions in class as well. Scenario questions. It's a great one, really. The professor's, he's a character, but the module is really, really interesting, and I would recommend it. It's fully essay-based as well, which is great. And then public international law is my favorite module this year, which is a controversial take as well. So the worst thing about the module is that it's based 100% on an exam, which is scary, but the things we cover every single week are so interesting. It's a completely different take from what you get in anything else compared to the second year module in international law that the department offers. It's very well structured. Also hers. But it's a really, really interesting one. The professor is amazing. I'm sure this also can tell you about how amazing she is afterwards. But it's a good one. Really interesting, law-based. Yeah.
Right. For me, what I'm calling the most impactful module was probably, it was not my favorite module, but it was definitely the most impactful in my second year, this module, foreign policy analysis. It breaks the black box of the state. If you're an IR student, you know, you're familiar with realism, liberalism, and these, you know, state is this actor and does things. So that breaks it down. So you go into the domestic level and see what happens. In that module, I got to really explore securitization theory, and the lecturer is one of the key protagonists within the Copenhagen School, which was because at the end of the day, you're going to write one or two essays, and you're going to apply a theory, one of the many, so you can focus on a specific theory. You become a mini expert on those theoretical debates. And that module really gave me the opportunity to engage with securitization theory, which then continued on my third year when I picked critical security studies, which is the umbrella term which encompasses securitization theory. And you get to dig deeper and deeper into the debates and the practical applications of that. In that sense, that was definitely foreign policy analysis was a very important module to me, and particularly probably for everybody who's into different theoretical traditions, that'll be definitely one that I would highly recommend.
I'd say in second year, statecraft was probably the best. It was online because it was last year, but I think the course content was good enough to make it good. Ladwig is obviously tough, but I think he is a really good teacher. He's one of those that might not be, the kindest, but I think he's a really good teacher. For the history ones, I took, the history of political thought, which is more looking at philosophers. So it's like Marx, Hegel, Burke, which I found a nice little departure from traditional modules in our history. In third year, post-conflict peacekeeping has been my favorite. It's the same teacher as authoritarianism, so you've heard good things about that. Same structure. It's a module which I already had a basis of knowledge for peacekeeping. I did some stuff before, and it's one where I'm a dissertational 101 to do after uni, so I've done my own research on it. And but I definitely learned a lot, changed my way of thinking. The teacher is also we've cited him in same authoritarianism. And the history one this year, I took Global Cold War. I thought it was really interesting. It goes away, it looks to move beyond kind of the East-West view of the Cold War, looks a lot like Global South. And with that, I'd say, I forgot to mention it in the first little talk section, your third year history module is often tied to your dissertation. So you can do the free long-standing essay one. I didn't do that. I'm not quite sure why. I think it was because you needed a draft in May, which I didn't want to do. I've only have an outline at this point, so. But just when considering third year history options, consider that it was between this. I thought the ones they were a bit rogue. This was kind of the only normal one. There was NHS and healthcare, Thatcher's Britain, and then French Revolution, which is my favorite historical period, but I didn't really want to write my dissertation on it. Maybe they changed that this year, but just look at that. But they're very, you can be very broad with your topics. I'd recommend emailing the professors now if you're deciding on your dissertation for history and saying, hey, I was thinking of doing this. Would that work within the framework of the module? For me, it was if it had anything to do with the Cold War remotely, it would be fine. So that's what I'd say for this.
But you can also choose to do your dissertation in war studies, right?
No, that's the thing.
Oh, you can't.
Yeah, which I didn't realize. I would prefer to do one in war studies, but I'm doing now on UN peacekeeping principles in Congo crisis, so you can still incorporate a lot of elements. And like I said, with the Cold War one, if it's remotely related, unfortunately, most peacekeeping missions are in the 90s, but it's just remotely related.
Yeah, because I think if you do war studies and philosophy or something like that, there are only 3 people in our year or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a very small course, but they could choose either to do it in philosophy or war studies. And war studies generally have a really good reputation for their supervision and of dissertation compared to other departments. So that's definitely something we could recommend.
Yeah.
I would at least recommend it, just so you know.
One point which has just come to mind is with the modules. I know first years is probably more relevant to you guys. For us, we was just war studies people within our modules, and then when we got into second year, we merged a lot more. So that just came to mind. So when you get into second year, you'll probably see a lot more IR students or war studies students within your modules, which kind of links to why I found my second year quite interesting, because I got to meet a lot of people. I actually met Camilla in second year online, and then met her in person for the first time this year. So it was a whole year online where we were speaking each other, bounce off each other in seminars, and then it's really interesting when you get to meet people from different courses, because you all have different ideas. So within my World War II module, which was my favourite second year module, most people were War Studies. I think everybody was.
Gotta be nice to them, even though they do a different course.
The the lecture was at 8 a.m. so like very thankful that you don't have to do it online. But I had Professor Maiola, I think he teaches an IR module. He's my DIS supervisor. You can request supervisors as well for your dissertation. I requested him because of he literally is amazing. That's the easiest way to sum him up. Like, he is a specialist in World War II, especially in intelligence. So if you have any interests within that, like, he will help you. So for me, like, the World War II one was so broad as well. It covered everything from the late 20s, the repercussions of World War I, up until the end, like the nuclear threat. And we also had a postdoc as our GTA, so he was really knowledgeable. He actually did his PhD on the UN, so he also brought that in. But another module I found interesting in second year was the grand strategy one. A lot of modules have professors and lecturers who are linked to centres within the department. So that module opened me up to the Centre for Grand Strategy and encouraged me to apply for the Engelsberg Applied History Fellowship. I was on the inaugural one last year, so if anyone has any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer as well. You get £1,000 if you get on it, so it's a bit of a bonus. My third year module, which I found the favourite, is Conflict, Slavery and Human Trafficking. It's run by Dr. Ryan. She's also in the Centre for Grand Strategy, so that's like one of the reasons why I picked it, because I knew how much of a specialist she was on the topic of slavery, specifically sort of in the 19th century, but also we cover modern day slavery as well. And with that module, you do get to choose what essay question and policy brief you can write about. So I wrote about Nazi forced labour, obviously going back to my sort of specialism in World War II. She is lovely, Dr. Ryan, and is a very strict marker. So if you get a good grade, you know, like, you've definitely earned it. So yeah, I think I also do gender and global politics with Miller as well. So like, we do a lot of feminist theory, which, coming from a War Studies background, was completely new to me. The first week when we walked in and it was like, what's the difference between sex and gender? I was like, I've literally just studied World War II for a year. Like, this is so different. But yeah, like, looking at different modules which open up a new sort of realm of knowledge could be quite good. Maybe not for third year because it's a lot of information to take on at once, but it's something to keep in mind, and that does help with my dissertation as well, actually, even though my dissertation is historical. So.
I definitely agree with Laura. The World War II module is very, very complete. It's very, very broad range. We talk about the origins and the consequences of World War II on the long term. So it's definitely a great module. And Professor Maiola is he's a character, but he's amazing. He makes you want to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, basically. I think that sums it all. My favorite module personally was my favorite module, it was Intelligence and War Studies. But that's also because I had already had an interest in intelligence before taking the module, so that definitely helps. Again, choose your modules through interest. But it also really, really conciliates that academic approach, very theoretical, but at the same time, you have the really hands-on approach with practitioners coming to give us talks and Q&A. So it's definitely a really, really interesting module. I'd also say, so for third year, I also say the Russia in the 21st century module is an amazing one. First of all, because of the topic itself. Russia is a very, very mysterious country, even though it's one of the biggest countries in the world today. It's not a country we really know much about, actually. It's a very opaque country. But also because, I think everybody here noticed, Russia has a new relevance in this day and age. Due to tragic events. So I think it's definitely a really, really interesting module that I personally enjoyed a lot.
I think, sorry, Casper, I think that's also the regional specialism that we can do as IR, yes? No?
It's just a separate module.
Is it a separate module?
From you, it's a separate module.
Oh.
War Studies module.
Oh, okay.
It's a War Studies module.
Yeah, I think it is the regional specialism, because the thing is, IR students have to choose a region, you can't avoid it, but you can also choose other and just do it. So War Studies must also be able to choose them. Again,
we don't get special priority.
No.
You can choose an IR module. Proof that you can crisscross with IR modules. Don't be afraid to do that.
Casper.
Yes, so for my second year, Intelligence in War Studies is also by far my favorite module. I actually didn't know a lot about intelligence before I went into that module. I saw it on the list and I was immediately interested in it. It was something I hadn't studied before. I hadn't thought I would be studying before. And then I found the content of the module really interesting. First semester was very topic-based, so we talked about forms of intelligence, human intelligence, covert action, open source intelligence. In the second module, we very much looked to intelligence systems, so UK intelligence system, US intelligence system. And as you mentioned, what I really liked about the module is that they attracted amazing guest speakers, ranging from private sector, a lady that works in the intelligence unit at PwC came to speak, to public sector, where we had a former human intelligence officer from the CIA and somebody that did military intelligence in the American Army as well. So it was a very, very broad range of very interesting people to learn from. On top of that, it's a very engaging module. There's a lot of extracurricular opportunities connected to the module. There's a trip to Bletchley Park every year, which is really very interesting. There are intelligence puzzles that you can try and solve, which are very fascinating, especially if you want to learn more about intelligence analysis. There's film screenings. So Jules Gaspard, the professor, very much creates a sense of community around the module, and it was very engaging, very interesting. I learned a lot from it, and I gained a lot of very transferable skills. As I mentioned before, that's what I look for in my modules, skills that can actually get me a job, and they got me a job. So I'm currently working as an intelligence analyst, and I find myself actually using the skills that I learned in this module on a daily basis in that job. So that's definitely a recommendation if you're interested in that field, or even if you haven't learned a lot about it and you feel like that's something I might find interesting. Then for my third year module, my favorite module is negotiating complexity. It's a bit of a different module. It's a 1 semester module, 15 credits, and it's part of the King's College London curriculum innovation. And basically what they do in that through that curriculum is they bring together different disciplines and different departments. So I think this module was fully led by the Dixon Poon School of Law, but it was also partially led by the War Department. And there were students from a range of backgrounds, so international relations, history, law. And basically what we did is we looked at how can you resolve complex interstate disputes, such as maritime disputes or human trafficking cases outside of the courtroom. Because if you've taken international law, you'll find that a lot of times you can go into litigation, but then either the jurisdiction of the court will not be recognized, or there won't be a favorable resolution at the end of litigation. Whereas this module really looks at what can you do below that level? Can you negotiate a resolution? Very hands-on again. It was very cool to speak to law students, IR students. It created a very interesting synergy. And also the assessment was really interesting, quite different. We had to do a position paper. We had to defend the legal position of a country of choice in a dispute of choice and propose an alternative to litigation. And I found that the skills I gained there are actually legal analytical skills that I hope I will find myself using one day in conflict resolution situations. And on top of that, you had to also record a video in which you made your case. A very interesting module, very different, short module, but definitely a recommendation if you're looking for something challenging and new.
Cool, thank you so much, guys. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take questions. I think we're going to do it, yeah?
Maybe if we could have a word on the LATAM module, or...
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if you guys have any insights, but because I feel like it could be cool.
I
have a few friends that are doing the Latin America module, so I don't know much, I'm not an expert, but I'll try and make a broad summary. What I think is really interesting with that module is firstly, the module convener is really good. He's a bit of an icon in I mean, Latin people always talk about Vinicius. He's a great guy. They have lots of events that they do and trips that they do outside of the module, so that's really cool. I know that in the first term, they did some archival research of some sort, which they all found really interesting. And in term 2, they actually did a trip to Italy, yeah, LATAM, Italy, but to study the Brazilian D-Day in Italy during World War II. So that was really cool too. And I don't think any other modules offer trips. So that's something
But
to
we're
take
happy
into
to go.
We're
happy to go.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that I've heard a lot about that module is that be careful, because in term one, it's very much centered around border disputes between lots of Latin American, again, knowledge that you need to understand the dynamics in the region today, but some people were caught off guard by that. But that's all I can tell about the Latin module. I hope it helps.
Yeah, and I think something that is very similar to Africa, for example, maybe also East Asia, South Asia, is that we do country case studies. Do you guys do that?
We do at least.
Okay. Yeah, so like, for example, in Africa, we have a new country each week, and then because of the interconnectedness, we kind of talk a lot about the different countries that like we're returning to them, but it's like technically one country each week. So that's, it can be a bit much because it's the one country that you need to learn about, but then on the same time, you get a really broad overview, whereas Russia, for example, obviously you look at Russia, EU, it's more about the institution, right? Matti? No?
We'll get into it.
Okay, you'll get into it. Okay, perfect. Good. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to do questions. I think we're not going to have everyone answer all the questions. We have some specific questions. It could be if one or two of you have some notes on that fits, then yeah, do Mark. Yes, in the back.
So basically, I want to ask you, I was really interested in gender and global politics because I think it's too general and too basic understanding of feminism. Like, I need to go deeper into the topic. Also because it's readings that I've already done for most of it, because I took gender module this year. I'm third year next year, by the way. So my question is, did any one of you took EIS module, including the post-colonial political economy one, or climate and capitalism, or like gender or development, or did another module in IR that was related to this area? Yes.
Matti.
So another module related to gender, or just like an EIS
One
module?
of these or another one, yeah. But no gender or development.
I would recommend maybe looking at critical security studies. There's I have a few friends there who are doing all kinds of cool, very hard theoretical feminist.
Okay.
We lost everyone.
I wonder.
Oh,
that's
great.
great.
Oh, okay, they're still here.
Wait.
Okay, hi guys, sorry about that. Can you still hear us? And
to teaching things for policy. What I found really interesting how these leaders use history. So for the Russia one, a lot about how Vladimir Putin uses the Second World War for his own political gain, and how. So the second term focuses on like 1 week Russian foreign policy history, the week after how Vladimir Putin's foreign policy is continuation, a break from history, and how he uses history. So it covers China, Russia, the US, and I think that's it. So that's kind of how the most. And in terms of seminars, is a lecture and then a seminar. So kind of the standard format. But I found it really interesting. It was one of my favorite modules second year. So.
Can I just 1 second for the people online? Just for everybody online, I'm sorry we just lost you guys, so you're now on the computer. If you have any questions, let us know, and I'm just gonna move the laptop around for you guys so you can still join in the discussion.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, for the international political economy, I've heard it's very Marxist-based. I wanted to know that.
Well, yes, it is. It is. I mean, the thing was, I think we had Dr. Lucia Pardella as our module convener. I'm not sure if she's still teaching because I think it's changed. That's why it's a new professor. It may have changed, but in our year, it's very, yeah, in a sense, it's very Marxist-based theory, but she tries to touch upon like different area. And I think beyond Marxist, it also touches on a lot of our international development side, which is not covered in a lot in the international economics module in the first year. So that's why if you're interested in international development in general, I think IPE is the module definitely you can go with it. Marxism is emphasized because professor teaches a lot, but I always use the other theories that I'm not Marxist. I still got through, and all the professors and the seminar leaders are open for different theories. So that's why you'll have no trouble. If you're interested in economy in general, political economy in general, like regardless of which school of thought you believe in personally, I think you'll be able to enjoy it. But yes, it is very, very heavily Marxist module.
I'll be a third year next year, and I was wondering how important it is to know or study the language of the region you're specializing in, so especially Chinese or Japanese or Russian for the dissertation, because maybe you can like do more readings if you also know another language.
I mean, I think for me, because like it's always an advantage to learn the language because I speak Mandarin and Korean, which are the two countries that I'm studying. So that's why I can use the resources and the articles from there. But I think it's not a necessary like requirement for you to have those language skills, like because there are enough English-based like, articles about the region itself. So that's why even though you don't have the language skills related to the region, you can still explore a lot. And technically speaking, I think if you're using the resources from those countries, you need to verify a lot more, and you need to ensure you cross-check if it's actually true, because the standard of the research might be different in the UK and the regions we study. So that's why it might be rather like you explore the English-based articles a lot so you can study, and you'll still be able to like produce the good results and the good assignments as you wish. So I think like language skill will be additional benefit, but not a requirement to succeed.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Colin. I did the Russian module, and I say the phrase I use the most is "Я не говорю по-русски," which is I don't speak Russian. So basically, it's definitely very useful in the sense that you get access to extra sources. I'm French English, so in all the history type essays I have to do that have something to do with French. Obviously, I have access to French language, French sources. Therefore, more sources. It's relevant, but it's not necessary. You have plenty to do without it, so I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Do you know anyone that took the gender in EU module from the IIS? I don't. Then a follow-up question to that, if you don't. It's completely unrelated to that. Okay, so for the people that take Russia and the EU, how is Eastern Europe tackled in each of these regions? Because there is no regional module in Eastern Europe, and I want to write my dissertation on that. But I think I'll take Latin America because I don't think I'll like the take on Eastern Europe either from the EU or from the Russian.
Did anybody do Russian EU? No, I think that's a new module as well. So I definitely understand the fact that I don't think there was.
Russia and EU
Oh, and
separate.
sorry, excuse me. I definitely understand why one of my friends didn't take that module for that very reason, because he thought the coverage wouldn't be good. I personally disagree with a lot what the lecturer says. Sorry, lecturer, if you're here. I personally disagree with a lot what the lecturer says. I disagree with the coverage of, for example, let's be honest, the coverage of the Ukraine-Russia war right now. I disagree with lots of aspects of it, not fundamentally, but I do have some disagreements. I think those disagreements shouldn't stop you from pursuing the module. I think if you have your opinions, maybe the module will say something against it. But if you make your case, for example, an assessment, if you make your case and it's backed up by proof, there's no reason why the teacher will go against. These are very, very current. Obviously, these are very, very current issues. These are issues that are very, very debated, especially issues relating to Russia and Ukraine, etc. And the rapport that Russia has with the EU right now. Those are very, very heated topics of discussion. Which is why there is no right answer. It's not black or white. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. So I think no matter what your take is, as long as it's backed, I think it shouldn't be a problem.
Just add on to that. I take the South Asia specialism and I'm really confused about what's said. Like I always have, I'm like kind of devil's advocate in every class, but that's okay. Like this department is meant for like critical analysis and discussion and like different views. And I think trusts are very welcoming by and large of like other views and like he said, as long as he's like back it up. So I don't want to discourage you. Like if anything, it should be more of a factor for you to take it because you could hear from other perspectives and they could hear yours as well. So
Yeah. So just two brief questions. First on the Russian module, I was looking at the assessment and it seems like there's a lot. Does it seem like a lot or?
I said exactly the same thing at the start of the year. Russia wasn't part of my 3 first modules, it was my 4th. I wanted to take cybersecurity before. Because I was like, because I saw the cybersecurity module, I saw 2 essays, I was like, yeah, that looks pretty cool. No, actually,
Can I switch this off again?
Yes.
they would, it looks like much, it really isn't. It's obviously, so if I remember well, it's my own module, I should definitely remember it. It's 2 essays, 1 exam and 1 presentation. 2 essays during the year if you manage well, it's pretty good. 1 exam is the end of the year, don't worry about that until the end of the year. And then you have the presentation. Student presentation is 1 week. It's 1 week presentation, and frankly, it's pretty easy. So I wouldn't worry personally about the workload in that module.
And then just the second question I had, about 2 modules, just generally, is anyone taking cybersecurity and thoughts on that? And is anyone taking criticality and intelligence, and how is that?
I know somebody who does cybersecurity. That was one of my options. I didn't get it. It's very oversubscribed. So if it's one of the ones you are interested in, put it as close to the top as you can.
Same thing with Same thing with authoritarianism. Yeah. Very, very demanding.
There's a few that I think most people find. There's a lot that are like oversubscribed. So if it is something you are really interested in, put it close to the top. But my friend who does it thoroughly enjoys it. And because she enjoys it, it's actually one of the highest marks she's got her whole time in uni, which she was like over the moon about. But the breadth of what they study is very interesting. And also, is it Tim Stevens who runs it, I think? He, from what I gather, is an expert in his topic and makes it very interesting and quite captivating to take part in.
Also job applicability.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah. I've been like, when I looked at the module outbound for gender and global politics, I thought that it was really interesting and I thought like, I can see one bad thing about it. So basically what I'm saying is that too good to be true? And if you've got anything bad to say about it, say it now.
You've got 2 perspectives on it. You could go first.
Oh, interesting. I don't necessarily have anything bad to say about it. It's a very interesting class because it's a very, you don't take that class if you're not concerned about gender. So it's very much a space where you can express those opinions. And it's not going to be looked upon sort of like sideways, which it sometimes is in other classes, depending on like who teaches or who's in it, which is one of my personal favorite things about that class specifically. The assessments are a bit interesting in the sense that you have to do reflective pieces, and it's not necessarily explained super well what that means. So I would say that's my sort of main criticism, is that the assessments can be a bit weird, but if you talk to the professor, she's really lovely and she'll sort of make it clearer. So.
From my perspective, because I just do war studies, do you do IR, sorry? Or?
Yeah, just straight IR.
Yeah, so it's probably less applicable, but if anyone else is interested, because we don't do theory in first year, it was a bit like overwhelming for me because it was a lot of stuff that I hadn't studied before, but the professor takes it sort of from a perspective of everybody's in the same position, sort of explains a lot of things, is very open. If you are struggling, you just go talk to her and she'll discuss things with you. I definitely agree, the reflective essays are quite confusing. It literally is just what you think of us, so 5 weeks, because you do 5 300-word pieces. But because it's personal view, like chances are you will score quite high, I would say, like when it's marked. And you do individual presentation, the group presentation, and then a 4,000-word essay. Because of the topic, you can sort of apply theories to what you're interested in. So for me, being in war studies, the second semester has been a lot more interesting for me because I've been able to apply feminist theory to conflicts, wars. I've been able to use what I've learned in my dissertation as well. It's very broad, so like anything that you are interested in, you can bring up in the class, and the questions that are provided are very broad too, so you can talk about literally anything you want and bring it up in class. So it's very interesting, I would say.
I think everyone who takes it is mostly happy with it, which like you don't necessarily find that a lot. You always find people who have criticism. The people I speak to about this module all like it, which I think is a good sign.
Cool, thank you. We'll quickly take 2 questions from online and then we'll go back here. Casper, do you recommend taking intelligence if you haven't done any intelligence before?
Yes, I didn't do any intelligence before I took the module, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's an easy one. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
Same thing. Had zero experience before, just thought it was interesting. Loved it.
Yeah.
Amazing. And 2 for Thomas about history and IR. Does the global Cold War module focus on different regions such as South Asia? Secondly, can you go beyond the module timeline for dissertation? And second of all, have you heard anything about the NHS to Obamacare, health and healthcare?
Yeah, I can't say anything about the NHS one. I haven't heard anything about that. But for the global Cold War one, they definitely try and go beyond just seeing it as East-West. They talk about like non-aligned movement. They have weeks on hot wars in Malaya, Cambodia. They have talks about Sino-Soviet split, about Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, so Latin America, so it covers the whole world. I think that's what they're trying to do in the module. In terms of the time thing, like for the dissertation, that was a bit tricky. I would prefer to do a dissertation in modern peacekeeping subjects. I did hear of someone who's doing a dissertation about something in the 90s. So I think it's just if you loosely connect it to the Cold War. But I emailed the module convener last year asking if I can do this topic. So I'd recommend doing that. They usually respond pretty fast, and they'll tell you like, yeah, it works within the framework, or you'd have to modify it by doing this. So I definitely recommend emailing the person.
Cool. Did we have a question here? I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering about the international law, human rights, and intervention module. I wanted to know how law focused is it, and like I do straight IR, would I need like as an advantage taking it? And then the second question on that same module is intervention human rights part very specific to like the classic examples like Afghanistan, Iraq, blah blah, or do you have like the space to explore like what you're interested in?
Yeah, so I took that module. So on the module, it is very interesting content, Well, first of all, about your first question, whether it's very law heavy, I would just say yes, it is quite law heavy, but it is a module that is designed for international relations students. So they will really sort of hold you by your hand, especially in the beginning. So very basic, they introduce very basic concepts like sources of law, like where do you go to actually find law that is relevant for my topic. So I would say, yes, it's law heavy, but there is that IR perspective. It's very much the IR module. So you do get to bring in some IR concepts, but at the same time, you are actually reading the law. So you're actually looking into conventions, looking into sources of law. Then your second question about examples on humanitarian intervention and human rights. I don't know, maybe Caroline, you want to add something after this, but I would say the examples that we cover in class, at least, are Afghanistan, Iraq, all of those. But in essays, the questions are quite broad, so you would be able to explore whatever topic you want to explore. And obviously in seminars, there's also a lot of room for discussion. There's also presentations where you can take your own angle as well on the question. Just a broader comment on the module. So like I said, the content is really interesting. We had a very great seminar leader. She's wonderful, really, really structured, very engaging seminars, but I would say that the lectures are a bit disstructured and chaotic. But other than that, they're two wonderful professors that are teaching it. They're really interesting. They have endless expertise. And I've spoken to Dr. Maria Varaki in her office hours a few times, and that's always been really interesting. But keep in mind that it might be less organized compared to some other modules that you may have had.
Yeah, I think definitely the presentations, you can shape that. We did one on targeted killings where we looked at Afghanistan, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we also went into the IR side where we looked at the effectiveness of targeted killings, which really showed that like the module brings together the two modules.
Yeah, I know they kind of change each year between also having a peacekeeping aspect and then a refugee migration aspect. We have the migration refugee, which was extremely interesting, and you could definitely feel that that was Dr. Varaki's area. She loved talking about it. And I think peacekeeping is extremely interesting as well. I do the peacekeeping with Thomas, and it's so good, so good, really well taught. So definitely recommend that if you're interested in that for third year. Yeah, I think international law, good. You have to put some effort in to structure everything, but go to their office hours, and then they're more than happy to help. Thomas and I also work for Dr. Kurt this summer, and she's super nice. Always up for a chat.
Yeah, and just one follow-up point, if you want to take any law modules in third year, so the one that I mentioned, and I think the same goes for public international law, I don't think it's a hard requirement to have the law module from second year, but it's a major advantage if you want to take more law modules in the future. On top of that, if you would ever consider doing a law master, you'll need a certain amount of credits in law, and this module gives you 15 law credits. So that is something to keep in mind as well in a bit of a longer term consideration.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question about how public international law compares to international law and human rights, whether they overlap quite a bit and whether it's better organized than the second year module.
I did not take both. I'm just doing public international law. However, what I know from the people that have taken international law and humanitarian intervention in second year is that it's a lot better structured. It's a lot better structured without going into like too much detail. Casper called it chaotic. I think that's accurate. Public international law is not that. It's very focused, it's very specific, it focuses on current events and applies the law that you learned that week to current events. It still goes over the sources, it goes over them in a way so you can understand it even if you did not take it in the second year. It's not a hard requirement. It's recommended, yes, and I think some people would definitely say it's a good idea to do both. But I would also say that I know people who from taking the second year module, maybe were a bit discouraged from taking it in third year, and that has not been the experience of the people who have taken it in third year at all. So.
I think I have a hot take on that.
Really?
Yeah, because it's Rosanna that teaches, right?
No.
Is it Philippa?
Philippa Webb.
It's,
Okay.
it's that.
Okay, she's great. She also does the innovation module that Casper talked about. They're really good.
Dr. Webb.
Really, really good. I think I really enjoyed international law. I think we were really lucky with our seminar leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it laid out an amazing foundation for my third year modules, which are very like peacekeeping focused. And that because I think public international law is a law module. The innovation module, law students say that it's very IR heavy. IR students say it's very law heavy. So I think actually doing the international law module in second year gives you that foundation without having the pressure of having law students who already know what they're looking for. So I think in that sense, I would recommend it. But definitely go into it knowing that you need to structure it yourself. You can be I really hope Clara is still teaching because she was really good at that. She is? Yeah. So hopefully, of course you can't choose that. So if I had the option, I would take international law again, I think. Just because it has changed so much in the way that I'm thinking about the international sphere. I use it in latest today in Africa, the Africa specialization, and it's just, I think it's super important to get that foundation already in second year, because public international law is hard, isn't it?
It's hard, but it's fun. Like, which is a very weird take to have, I realize. It's so engaging. It's a lot, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's so engaging. I cannot stress that enough. I love that there is academic aspects that are then like compared and put onto actual real life topics that you then also discuss. It's great.
Okay, I think we'll go here.
Does anybody know anyone who took disasters and extreme events?
I know quite a few people, yeah.
It looks quite interesting because they have a lot of guest speakers. What do you know about it?
I don't know anything about guest speakers. I have not heard anything about that. I have heard that the wiki topics, because they do a lot of scenario discussions, are sometimes a bit UK-centric. I have heard mixed things about the module in general, to be honest, and I cannot go further into detail, but I can get you into some contact with people who can.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So I have a couple of friends who do that. It's a bit, at least what I've heard, they say it's a bit like geography, liberal arts, like reminiscent, rather than like IR, because obviously the things they're dealing with are like management and like, because it's UK-centric as well, it's more like internal policy rather than like a global view of it. So that's something I'm interested in, I guess that's interesting.
Cool. Yeah?
So my question is for those of you who are taking a regional specialism, which most of you. I was just wondering if the workload for that module is a lot heavier than regular modules, because among second years there's kind of an understanding that in third year you spend more time on your regional specialism relative to other modules. And the second question is, for any of you who did war, media and journalism, which I think might be a new module for third year.
Yeah, doesn't exist. It didn't exist in our year.
Is that the same for climate change and IR?
Also didn't exist.
Regarding that, we're designing it with Nick.
Matti is designing it with Nick.
So if you have suggestions, I can bring. What's that?
How many people did actually help design that? Because I was very close. I wasn't sure I was going to take the model, so I was like, I'm going to help design it. I'm not going to take it.
We're about, I don't know, 5 to 6 people. But yeah, if there's something you want to study, I mean, I can bring them up.
Regarding
regional, yeah.
Yeah, regarding the first question about regional specialism, I think the workload is pretty much the same from one module to the other. I think the assumption comes from the fact that generally you choose your dissertation topic based on your regional specialism, and so therefore you dedicate more time to that region mechanically, but otherwise it just depends on some modules in particular, like public international law or critical security studies have more readings, more work to do, but not regional specialism specifically.
Just from my experience, I'm taking a MENA. It's just very reading heavy. And because the discussions are very historical, you look at case studies, you also actually need to have done the readings properly to engage. So I do spend quite a lot of time preparing for the classes. So yeah, for me, it does take a little bit more time compared to other modules. But like you said, it really depends on what your other modules are. If you have a very reading heavy module like public international law, then it might be very on par.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing, really. Russia, for the Russian module, do you do war studies or international relations?
International relations.
International
So
relations.
whatever you say, I'm going to have to do.
If you choose the Russian module, in any case, it's definitely very news-based. So it's just really about following the news. There is a lot of literature at the start of the year. I'm not going to hide that slowly during the year that kind of crumbles a bit because people don't do the readings. But otherwise, apart from that, yeah, no, it's very news-based. So just keep an eye on that region of the world, basically. But apart from that, no, it's not that much more.
Yeah. Just a quick question for the panel. Do you guys know if in second year we're only allowed one language module for free, right?
Yeah.
What about first and third year? We have to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
First year is paid, you can do like an evening course.
Yeah.
Whereas in second year, you can take an additional 15 credit module. So if you do the non-paid one, that does mean that you're going to get the credit and the grade, whatever you get, is going to be on your academic record. However, it doesn't count towards your average. That is how it was for me, and this changes every year. So there's something to absolutely double check.
There's also the East Asia stream within that.
I also heard that nowadays you can apply for 500 quid from the Student Opportunity Fund to do a language course during the summer, which is something to keep in mind.
But just to specify, in third year, you can take language, it's 15 credits, but it counts towards your 120 credits.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So that's
You would have to give up
module.
another module, yeah. Whereas in second year, you can add another 15 credits, which does increase your workload.
And you can pay for it. So you can do like evening courses in Arabic.
Yeah,
like
that's the
during
third
week.
option.
Yeah. Down here?
Yeah, I was wondering if anyone applied for like an external module that is not like from a different department, and like whether you would recommend that if like we're interested in other modules.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. So the one external module that I did is the one I mentioned earlier. That's I think it's mainly run by the Dixon Boone School of Law, and I had an amazing experience with that one. I'm currently enrolled in an international, what's the IDE, European Studies, International European Studies Department. I find the quality of War Studies, War Department modules better. But I'm happy to talk to you about that after.
I think, so the ICE modules, right? ICE.
ICE,
the European something. Yeah, those you can apply. Those you can apply through to like just through your like as you apply for war studies modules. The innovation module you have to send in. There's like a bunch of different ones. You don't have to do law. So you send in an application form. If you do external modules, and it's a shame that Irene is not here because she only does external modules. She doesn't do anything in war studies, but she's but her regional specialism. But basically, you have to. Don't take my word for this 100%, but it's something like you have to choose the modules. Then you have to get confirmed by the module convener that you are eligible. It's something like geography, development. Stuff like that we're always eligible for, and they're smaller departments, so we're quite likely to get it. Whereas the law school, for example, it's super competitive, so you're not likely to get it unless it's like public international law, which is kind of offered to us as well. Then you apply, and then Dr. Lat, do your IR? Yeah, so Dr. Latwood will write to you and be like, I need a statement on why this is relevant to a degree, and then you write that. I think it's 1 page per module or something like that. Yeah, so, but they do have info sessions on that, but it's just to say it's possible. Some departments are easier to get into, and it has to be relevant for a degree overall. But again, Irene managed to do it for all the modules, so I can put you in contact with her if you want. Here.
On authoritarianism, do you only look at structures and institutions, or also at resistance, grassroots, identity, and also it's the first semester module, right? So it's a 15 whole year. Then what is the 15?
For this year's one,
I think it's one semester for this year.
Wait, I mean, like, is the module name authoritarianism or authoritarianism and international politics?
No,
There are
it's
two modules.
politics. Yeah, it's politics
Yeah.
of authoritarianism.
It's different.
But ours is mostly institutions. But what's cool with this module and the grassroots side of things comes into your second essay. So for the first essay, you pick a country, I'm doing China, and you analyze what are the main sources of regime survival and stability in that country. And then in your second essay, you put yourself in the shoes of a democracy promoter and you try and destroy that regime and bring it down. And so that's where you'll delve more into the grassroots side of things, civil society, etc. But so you kind of get both.
Yeah, the first term is authoritarianism, second term is more focused on democratization. So first term we look at authoritarian stability, methods of maintaining power, and then the second term is all about democratization, theories of it, how it's democratized, technique, strategies. So that's kind of how it's split. And then the first essay is authoritarian stability, the second essay is democracy.
So it's a IR or war studies because we don't have it on our selection list this year. It only figures as politics of authoritarianism. And
who is the module convener for it?
We don't have a module out now.
No, it would come out by now.
It has to be in the
Oh,
Yeah, it's the same one. Oh, okay, so it's one semester.
He just had a baby, so maybe he's reduced.
I was just about to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do 2 more questions, so in the green and Max, and then I think we're gonna do one of your best tips super quick because we are way over time now. But thank you so much for staying both online and in here. So green chair.
I have one more question on this stage. I'm so sorry. It's just the regional specialism is the one that I've been struggling with most. I saw they had a group project and they terrify me because they're interested. I hate relying on other people. How difficult is it? And what's the I don't know how else to say this, but how invested are people? Because I would assume that people are quite invested in a module that they're choosing to specialize in, but do you get?
That's what we're working on right now. It's the group project is what we're working on this semester. I think in a sense, everyone's invested in it. Also because in each group, there are around 10 people in one group, 9, 8, 10 people. So the result in the 6,000 word essay becomes 600 words per person or so. So that's why the commitment is relatively lower than you think when you work on it. But I think it's just a research process. They take a little bit of time, and the whole project is aimed at policy recommendation in the end. So that's why I think we plan to spend a lot of time discussing about the policy recommendation than the research itself. But all those policy recommendations in our group at least, everyone is committed, everyone comes to the meetings, we set the meeting time. I think similarly other groups also have the clear meeting times, the schedule, because all of us are working for the dissertation as well. I think everyone is super committed to finish it on time so that we can have enough time for the dissertation. So because everyone is on the common goal of ensuring we have enough time for the dissertation and other stuff, everyone try to focus on East Asia, the group project really fast and try to ensure we finish everything on time, on schedule. And also because when the policy brief comes out, our guideline comes out, the professors divide it to different sections that we can explore, which also helps us a lot on how we can divide the work between the people. So our group, we divided different sections, and then we are just gathering together for more discussion afterwards, so we can just make the essay all together. So I think in that sense, you don't have to worry about the group project itself. It's not as terrifying as it sounds. It's actually more interesting that you can go. It's just one thing is it is a little bit competitive to get the topics. Some of the topics, for example, I know the Hong Kong and the UK topic, that got sold out in around 2 or 3 minutes once it opened up. So we opened it at 2 p.m. I think 2:05 it was closed. So except for those topics, the other topics that are more loose, I think every topic though has the 8 to 10 people. So everyone will be doing the single amount of work, so you don't have to worry too much about it.
So do you pick a topic and then you're assigned to a group based on the individual? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
And so I would like to ask possibly all of you to say in one sentence which third-year module is the best one, either the most interesting one or most useful, anything you want, and why. in one sentence or in very short. A few words.
So specific.
For me, it's conflict, slavery, and human trafficking. It's very broad. It's historical and modern. A lot of people go into law after it. Dr. Ryan's lovely, and the workload is pretty good.
I'd say Russia in the 21st century, because shit's happening. And lots of stuff is happening in front of our eyes. And it's one of the most current topics right now that everybody's talking about. And then when you explore this module, you see that a lot of what the mainstream, a lot of what the media is saying, a lot of what people say in general, a lot of what you see on Twitter, which is known to be the haven of intellectual discussion on this earth, a lot of things that are being said is absolutely wrong. So.
I wish I had the Russian module at this point. So I would definitely consider that. But to me, the favorite module this year is negotiating complexity. It's the module I mentioned earlier. What's nice about it is that it's multidisciplinary. It brings together a lot of disciplines, and it gets you really hands-on skills. At the same time, because you kind of represent international relations in the class with like 2 or 3 more people, so you actually get to bring in that IR perspective and then bounce off a law perspective. It's a very cool synergy in that class, and it's interesting content.
I'd say the authoritarianism module, although I do realize that it may not be offered to you guys, but generally Dr. Tansi also does the peacekeeping mission, and any of his modules are great, both in terms of the formats, the content, and the engagement in class. It's a really interesting topic. As I said earlier on, it's interesting because you get to put yourself in the shoes of authoritarian leaders, and you kind of flip the coin, which is relatively interesting. Even though the second term focuses on democracy promotion, you still come out of it with a more open mind on how come we're seeing so much autocratization nowadays.
I think, I mean, although I love the other ones as well, like I found the comparative capitalism module quite interesting. It's the one-term module that I took in my first term from the EIS department taught by Dr. Sugan Lee. She definitely has a lot of experience in engaging with the East Asian studies, of course, because she studies Korea itself. But also, I think I like the module because she explores different perspectives towards capitalism, different aspects of the economy, which is rare to find in when you study economics itself, because she touches upon how the social issues connected back to the economics and how the economic can also affect different parts of society, which allow me to widen my perspectives towards the economy per se. That's why I can get like both theory and different perspectives. So that's why I like the module.
Could the war studies people take from other modules from other departments as well?
It is from like European and International Studies departments, so it will be one of the options that you can choose.
Even for second year or only third year?
I think because international political economy in my second year was from EIS department, and I still could choose it.
Any department, as long as it's relevant, and you can justify why you want to take it.
Yeah. Because I didn't see it in the selection on the student records, so.
No, but there's a difference between what's offered to you within your department and some module you find by yourself in another department and you say, hey, that's pretty interesting.
This is offered, but you don't need to apply for it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, you don't.
I think it's offered to like IR students, but maybe for studies it's like might be different.
That's what I'm asking, like if war studies and IR students have the same choice.
We have access to the same module.
Normally, yeah.
I think it varies. So second year you have like less choice. Third year I think we have access to every module that we both do, but second year definitely like we couldn't pick international relations modules, and I know it's the same the other way around as well.
But even if it's not the case, email.
Yeah.
I would say public international law for reasons mentioned already. It touches on current events. It's really interesting. But also you get to bring in another perspective because you're someone doing IR in a room full of people who do law. And they do actually care, like it's about the real world manifestations of the law, which you have a different perspective on because you're taught to think that way, or they're taught to look in a book, to put it. It's a completely relevant experience that you get to bring into the room, which is great.
I want to highlight how amazing the dissertation module can be.
Unpopular.
You have a full year, you can work on your own project, and you can go crazy with it. You can be very ambitious, like me, and you get to interview a lot of people. And you get to learn huge amounts of new skills that you wouldn't in any other module. You learn how to use different transcription software. People invite you to their homes and they offer you sandwiches and coffee. And that's what you do. So dissertation-wise, in your third year, just be ambitious. Do go crazy and interview people. And that's really one way to learn some new things about international politics, which will be very useful. It doesn't have to be a library project.
I'd say the post-conflict peacekeeping module, Dr. Tansy, is great. I really like the content. I think most of the people in the class also, especially in this coming along third year modules, you'll find in first year people might not be as engaged as like core courses, but third year often people pick the courses they really want, so everyone just wants to learn, everyone wants to engage. The content's great. I really enjoy peacekeeping, so maybe I'm a bit biased in that I just really enjoyed the topic, but I've had also friends who didn't know anything about it before and they come out from it really enjoyed it as well.
Amazing, thank you so much, guys. I think this is actually a really good note to slowly end on. The best of luck choosing your modules, whether it's second year, third year. For incoming third years, don't stress about the dissertation. I think I speak on mostly all of us. I don't even want to hear if you've started. But I have 0 words. I have my question, but I'm going to change it. So don't stress too much about it. The lecturers are more than happy to help you, and third year is a blast. They're a lot more chill than you experience in first and second year. So thank you so much, guys. Let us know if you have any questions afterwards or reach out. And hopefully I'll see you tomorrow at the ball. Bye.
Yeah.